Hello, today I'll be talking about 10 rock/metal albums that'll be turning 20 this year. And yeah, there are definitely many albums that you can choose from when it comes to, of course, albums turning 20 this year. I mean, you got As I Lay Dying, Avenged Sevenfold, Korn, Voivod, Live. Again, there's a lot of bands out there that dropped albums in 2003, but yeah, I randomly selected these 10 here, and keep in mind, this will be in no particular order, and also this is not a top 10. These are just 10 albums that I randomly selected that are, again, turning 20. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into this, starting off with 311 with their album Evolver. And yeah, maybe not their best, but still kind of one of the more underrated releases, I'd say. It's not talked about as much as some of their other albums like Grassroots or the Blue Album, or even From Chaos, which was the album before this one. But yeah, of course you do have one of their big songs, Creatures for a While, which is definitely a banger and also one of their best album album openers, I'd say. But I feel like the rest of the album is somewhat kind of underrated. You do get some pretty good deep cuts in the album, I'd say, like Don't Dwell, which shows off their more funky side, and Other Side of Things, which is one of the more heavier songs on the album. I do like the reggae-ness that you get in Beyond the Gray Sky. But yeah, Crack the Code, definitely one of my favorites on the album, I'd say, and of course, same with Creatures. But yeah, all around, another really good album from 311. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. Or if you haven't heard it in a while and you're a 311 fan, definitely give it another listen. Now let's go ahead and move on to something a bit heavier, moving into the realm of melodic death metal with Arch Enemy, Anthems of Rebellion. I got a promo CD and just the regular CD. And I'd say this album is really one of the band's best. Probably my second favorite from them. Wages of Sin will always be at the top for me. That album is just too good, but this album's also really good. Especially, you do have the song on here that got me into the band, that song being We Will Rise. Definitely one of their more anthemic songs, and Riff Rise, definitely through and through a banger. I mean, you have other great songs like Dead Eyes, See No Future, which is one of the bigger songs on the album. But you also have some really good deep cuts like Dehumanization and End of the Line and Instinct. Silent Wars is also pretty good too, but all around, a really great album from Arch Enemy. And if you like melodic death metal and you somehow haven't heard this, definitely check it out. Again, if you're a fan of bands like In Flames or At the Gates or Dark Tranquillity. But let's go ahead and move on to some pop punk with one of the big names in the genre, Blink-182, with their self-titled album. And this would be their final album with Tom DeLonge until they would return in 2011 with Neighborhoods, and then Tom would leave again, and then they would have Matt Skiba for 2 albums, and then, of course, Tom would come back with the album that they dropped this year, One More Time. But yeah, self-titled album, pretty good, definitely one of the band's best. This album and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket kind of fight for being my second favorite Blink-182 album. Enema of the State would definitely be at the top for me, but this album's definitely great. I mean, you have one of their best album openers, I'd say, with Feeling This, top 5 Blink-182 song for me personally. You also have one of their iconic songs, I Miss You. Stockholm Syndrome is also pretty good. Honestly, the singles off the album are definitely really good, I'd say. Yeah, Feeling This, I Miss You, Down, Always. But you also have some pretty solid deep cuts, like Asthenia and Obvious. Obvious probably being one of my favorites on the album, but again, definitely one of Blink-182's best. But now we're moving to some prog metal with Dream Theater, Train of Thought. One of their heaviest and also one of my favorites from the band, which I don't know if that's unpopular to say, but of course it'll depend on who you ask. But either way, I really enjoy this album. As I Am is one of their best album openers, in my opinion. You also have Honor Thy Father, which is definitely one of my favorite epics from the band, or at least when we're talking about songs that they've done that are 10 minutes or longer. Endless Sacrifice is another highlight for me off the album. In the Name of God, maybe one of my favorite album closers from the band. But yeah, all around, another really great album from Dream Theater. And of course, if you like their more heavier side, then you should definitely be pleased by that album. But now I'll be moving to the world of nu metal and also moving into one of my favorite albums of all time. And that album is Meteora by Linkin Park. So yeah, this album, I mean, this might have been the first album that I ever heard in full by any genre. I could be wrong about that, but at least one of the first few at least. But yeah, can't say enough positive things about this album. For me, this album is Linkin Park's peak. I know some people point to Hybrid Theory, and yes, that album also has no skips, but I slightly like Meteora more, just by a hair. I mean, this album, just like Hybrid Theory, also has no skips, and the chemistry between Mike and Chester, just can't deny the magic that they have together with this album, and of course, the same with Hybrid Theory. But yeah, they have great chemistry throughout the album, and yeah, also have your bangers, but you also have your more melodic songs like Numb and Easier to Run. But yeah, you also get a decent variety here. The album doesn't really blur together or anything like that. Again, you definitely get a decent variety. Nobody's Listening and Breaking the Habit being some of the more unique songs on the album. You also have From the Inside, which is definitely a top 10 Linkin Park song for me. But also, the deep cuts on the album are also excellent. Some of them being maybe as good as the singles like Figure .09 and Hit the Floor. I mean, again, this is an album that you can listen to from front to back with no issues. And yeah, again, one of my favorite albums of all time. But now we're moving to the band that is on my shirt right now. And this is a VIP shirt. But yeah, I met Machine Head last year, and so yeah, I got to meet Rob and Jared and all of them. It was definitely really cool. But the album we are talking about from them is Through the Ashes of Empires. Not their best, but maybe one of their best though. I don't know. It might be more closer towards the middle for me when it comes to ranking their albums. Again, of course, my mind on that could change at any time, but either way, solid album. You do have one of their best songs on here with Imperium. I think Days Turn Blue to Gray is kind of an underrated song from them. I believe it was one of the singles off the album, but I feel like it's not talked about as much as some of their other singles, like of course Davidian or 10 Ton Hammer, but still pretty good song. Bite the Bullet's another favorite of mine off the album. Seasons Wither is also pretty good, but yeah, again, maybe not the band's best, but still fairly solid album. Definitely a great recovery from the album before it, Supercharger, which is definitely a contender for maybe being their worst album, either that one or Catharsis. Then now we're moving to one of the big four, Metallica with Saint Anger. So yeah, 2003, maybe not the best, maybe not the most perfect year out there for music, but I still think 2003 was maybe one of my favorite years for music because there were so many great albums from that year. But again, wasn't perfect though, because you do have Saint Anger and of course probably some others. But I actually think this album is not as bad as some people make it out to be. Again, it's not great, but there is actually some stuff I do enjoy off the album. Frantic is probably my favorite off the album. I mean, yeah, throughout the album you do get some pretty dumb lyrics. I don't even know what the question is. I mean, again, some lyrics that you get some of their worst lyrics on the album, like, ooh, what a good boy you are, or something like that. From The Unnamed Feeling, if I'm thinking of the right song. Oh, wait, no, that was a different song, I think. It might have been Invisible Kid. Either way, I can't remember, but either way, the album, I think, actually has its moments. I mean, yeah, there are definitely issues with the production, and of course you have the iconic snare, of course iconic for bad reasons, but yeah, even with all the issues that this album has, I do think it does have its moments, but still not great. But again, like I said earlier, not as bad as some people make it out to be. But now we're moving to maybe one of the most underrated albums in the world of nu metal, in my opinion. Sure, can be a bit samey or formulaic at times, but at the same time, I personally really dig the album. And the album I am talking about is POD with their self-titled album, Payable on Death. Honestly, this is one of my favorites from the band. Sure, it's not as good as Fundamental Elements of Southtown or Satellite, but I don't know, I personally really dig the album. Of course, definitely very different from Satellite. This album's a bit darker and not as much variation as you got on Satellite, but I do like the singles off the album, Will You and Change the World. Change the World probably being my favorite of the singles, and maybe one of my favorite POD songs too. Execute the Sounds is also another highlight for me off the album. You do get some pretty good deep cuts, I'd say, like Freedom Fighters and I and Identify. You do have an instrumental at the end called Eternal, which I think is also solid. I might not return to that song as much as some of the other songs on the album, but still fairly interesting instrumental, I'd say. But POD self-titled, again, kind of underrated. Definitely one of their more different albums, but again, solid, I'd say. Now we'll be moving to Third Eye Blind with Out of the Vein. For me, their last really good album. I do like Ursa Major, but I do think it is a step down from the albums before it. But again, for me, their last really good album. I mean, you do have Blinded, which I think is one of their best songs. Same with Crystal Baller. But you do have some solid deep cuts like My Hit and Run and Faster. I do like Can't Get Away too. I would say that the first half is definitely the stronger half, but the second half does have its moments though. But yeah, one of Third Eye Blind's best, I'd say. Maybe not as good as their iconic debut, but still, again, I'd say one of their best. Now for the final album for this video, we have 3 Days Grace with their self-titled album. So yeah, I got Adam to sign these when I got to meet him during the Santa Sonia VIP, and I did do a video on that. So if you want to hear my thoughts on my VIP experience with Santa Sonia, definitely check it out after this video. Again, if you're a fan of Adam Gontier or 3 Days Grace or Santa Sonia or anything like that. But yeah, this album, definitely one of the band's best. Probably my second favorite. Of course, 1X is at the top for me, but this would be in close second. This was an album that I listened to a lot when I was younger. Same with, of course, Hybrid Theory and Meteora, Issues by Korn, and of course many others. System of a Down's Toxicity. But yeah, this album is definitely great. I mean, you have some of their most iconic songs like Just Like You, I Hate Everything About You, and Home. Home is a song that I've grown to appreciate more and more. I mean, I've always really enjoyed that song. It's always been one of my favorites off the album, but I definitely like it much, much more, especially after hearing it live twice this year. I definitely really love the song. Maybe a top 10 3 Days Grace song for me. I definitely really dig the heaviness of the guitar in that song, especially, such as in the verses. But you also do get some pretty good deep cuts, like Drown, which has always been one of my personal favorites on the album. Born Like This, kind of an underrated song. And Overrated, I think, is maybe one of their best album closers, I'd say. But yeah, self-titled, definitely one of the band's best, I'd say. But yeah, those are 10 rock/metal albums that are turning 20 this year. Let me know if you can think of more albums. Let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the albums that I talked about here in this video. Are these albums some of your favorites of 2003 and all the good stuff? But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and of course, take care, guys.